advantage once again, but Switzerland and Brazil are not too far behind. These three cars then have a useful margin of some 6 seconds or so over 3 seconds in fact over New Zealand, and the pit teams keeping an eye on what's going on. That's inside the Brazilian pit. Can their man claim second in the closing stages of this race? And that would put him into second place on the grid, of course. Further back, Austria coming under pressure from Indonesia, and we've been impressed with Ananda Mikkola this weekend so far. John, do you reckon he can find a way past Matthias Lauda?
I think there's a good chance. Matthias has really been on a very steep learning curve. He had a few little moments during the practice and qualifying sessions. He's got his father here this weekend. Now just maybe settle him down and just allow him. As we look at Team China, they had contact earlier in the event with Malaysia when they had that bump down at turn 10, so Team China pulls into the garage to get that car now prepared for the feature race, which will be in a little over an hour from now.
The Lebanon and Chinese teams under investigation after their incident as well, interestingly enough, as Scott Speed watches the race, sitting down by the car, not where he wanted to be at all. What a disastrous start for Team USA. It didn't go well from McBrand's in terms of pace. They've had the pace here this weekend, no doubt about that. Fastest single lap in qualifying. He didn't put two together enough to beat this man, Nicolas Lapierre, to take pole position, but he did start from the front row, and it's all gone to pieces. It's Lapierre who leads for France, Yanni second for Switzerland, Piquet third for Brazil, and then the gap back to Johnny Reed for New Zealand and Timo Scheider for Germany.
Yes, and Timo Scheider seems to have really said, look, I've given it my best shot in the early laps. I wasn't able to get past Johnny Reed. He defended well, he drove cleverly where it was important. He didn't allow me any opportunities whatsoever. We saw Timo Scheider have a look a couple of times coming down, pit straight into turn one, but wasn't far enough forward, so maybe he's decided that fifth is what I can do here with 5 laps remaining, and unless something happens to Team New Zealand, I think that's where they will finish, both 4th for New Zealand and 5th for Germany.
The points count the same in this race as they do in the feature race. China being pushed back out, in fact, so they will maybe get a finish in here because of looking to get a decent grid position for the second race. It's worth going back out and finishing the laps as many as possible. But remember, there are still 10 points on offer to the winner of this race. That's exactly the same number of points on offer to the winner of the feature race. It goes on down the list, 9 points to second, 8 points to third. So when you get to the closing stages, perhaps people won't take too many risks here. They want a decent grid position for the feature race, and they want to score some useful points.
On board with Thomas Enge and the Czech Republic team, and he's putting pressure on Hideki Noda for Team Japan. So slightly better approach out of turn 13 for Czech Republic, but again, really, because Japan is on the throttle a bit sooner, that's what causes that. In a sense, it's a slightly artificial gap that opens up, because at the end of the straight, the Czech Republic will lift off slightly later and the gap will return to the level it's been pretty much for the last few laps.
Interestingly though, Thomas Enge was able to get past the South African car of Thomas Scheckter, because he's now up into that 12th place. So Enge has been one of the most impressive in terms of getting past people, but of course he was not involved in, but he got slowed right down, didn't he, by that first corner accident.
Yeah, the consequences of that accident went all the way down through the field. It just didn't involve those that were immediately involved with Team GBR and of course Team USA.
New fastest lap again for Brazil. In fact, France had reclaimed fastest lap briefly, but now Nelson Piquet's got it back. There is a point on offer to the fastest lap, but it's between the two races. So whoever gets fastest lap in either sprint or feature, whichever is the fastest of the day, they get the extra point. So it's still worth going for. Brazil, though, in third place, not able yet to find a way past Switzerland.
There's Thomas Enge right on the tail of Hideki Noda, Team Japan. The gap actually looks larger there from the track camera than it does the onboard camera. So again, into turn 10, this is the corner we've seen a lot of the action. It's a slow corner, you've got to get the speed off, then you pick up the throttle very quickly and drive the car through 11, and then it's back onto the brakes for this very tight sequence of turn 12, and then finally 13 that leads on to the beginning of the big bank turn 14 onto Main Straight.
That's where the big slick tyres are working hard. You can see Thomas Enge having to flick on the opposite lock out of that corner. The minimum speed through there is down to right. It's a very low pace, around 45 miles an hour or so, and that shows you how much the traction is important out of that corner. Of
course, they've got the opportunity to use the power boost button, and looking down we've seen that both Malaysia and Canada, not surprisingly, have used the maximum number of applications. That's 4 in the sprint race. They'll be allowed 8 when it comes down to the feature race. And France has used it 3 times, Switzerland twice, Brazil 3 times, strangely New Zealand and Germany only once apiece.
Robbie Kerr on the left-hand side there, and Adam Khan on the right, still with his helmet on, interestingly enough. Poor Robbie, well, he went for the move, didn't he, into the first corner. I'm sure it will be debated. It's going to be analysed as well by the race director and by the stewards, so we'll get a bigger picture on that later on. But we're into the closing stages of this first race. Under 3 laps to go now, and still Malaysia managing to fend off the likes of Canada, Italy, Mexico and Ireland.
But interestingly, Italy, Mexico and Ireland have yet to make use of the power boost button, so they maybe are going to save it for, well, we want 3 laps to go. If they're going to use it, they better start using it pretty quickly, because there's no point when the race is over. Well,
France has just given a little extra push on the power boost. That's interesting, isn't it? Because he's on his own, he's up in front. I guess he might as well use it, but we've just seen the indicator come up on our screen that he used the push to pass, and maybe going for that fastest lap now.
Very important to get a point, whether it's in this race or in the feature race, and more likely it ought to come in this race. It's the shorter of the two. The feature race, of course, is 36 laps. You have to decide whether you want to change that mandatory set of wheels and tyres either midway or after 2 laps or 1 lap before the end. But because this race is 18 laps, I suspect the quickest lap for the 2 events is going to come in the sprint race.
Now, what's been happening, this was the race that we've been enjoying between Malaysia and Canada and Italy. You can see the cars over the bumps, a little bit of a brake lock-up from Sean McIntosh for Canada, but I don't think that it's actually affected his opportunities too much. He's still in behind the Malaysian entry. France continue to lead by just over 2 seconds from Switzerland, Brazil. And then there's a car that's confusing us, or if you're not careful it might do. It's China, but they're not running there.
Yes, they've been in the pits, in the garage, and in fact have gone back out again. They're still being listed as 18th, so that's advantageous to them to be running, even though they're not going to be in the money, as they might say. It certainly is about grid position for the feature race.
Italy in blue, chased by Mexico, then Ireland, and then Japan and the Czech Republic. And Thomas Enger with a lot of fans here today, wandering around in the paddock area, enjoying the access that they have been able to get here, right up close to the teams, to the drivers. And that's certainly a major part of this championship. A lot of the fans down in that paddock area during the lunchtime period, but now watching their man and seeing if he can move up any further. He's got up to 12th place as Thomas Enger for the Czech Republic, and he's been a little stuck in recent laps behind the Japanese entry being driven by Hideki Noda.
Of course, one of the problems is you can catch somebody in relative terms easily, but when you get then behind them, you lose your momentum if you haven't got the opportunity to take the run and time it just precisely. As we look at Malaysia, Canada and Italy, and they've been running like this for the last number of laps, and so far none of these two who are chasing down Malaysia have been in a position to really threaten that 6th place.
Brazil's just used its power boost as well, but again, I think it's more about getting fastest lap or holding fastest lap, which they have already got at this stage. And France there with this very useful advantage. They're in no trouble. They're on to the final lap, and it does look as though Nicolas Lapierre is going to be able to take the first win for France in A1 Grand Prix, and Nelson Piquet's record of being unbeaten in the races so far is about to come to an end. 2 victories at Brands Hatch, but he hasn't been able to find a way past the Swiss entry in this one.
No, he hasn't, but of course by finishing 3rd he's able to consolidate his current lead, because now then Nicolas Lapierre, well, of course if we're talking about nations, not drivers, but Brazil have consolidated their lead. France will pick up maximum points in this first of the sprint races, and for Neil Yarney and Team Switzerland, a very, very welcome 2nd place.
So the win of the sprint race here at the Euro Speedway goes to France. It's their first win in the World Cup of Motorsport, and it's Nicolas Lapierre the winner.